Our first panel is Beauty That Breaks Through, How Brands Make It at Sephora. Please welcome Caroline Bodajowski, EVP Merchandising at Sephora, Nikki DeRoest, co-founder and CEO at ciele, Charlotte Palermino, co-founder and chief brand officer of Dieux, and moderated by Janna Mandell, senior editor at BeautyMatter.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me? Yeah? Good morning, everyone. For those of you who are founders in the audience, you know that before any product is formulated, before your packaging is designed, you have a vision of exactly what your brand is going to look like, right? And you're thinking, how am I going to know when I succeed? And seeing those milestones. And a lot of times it's a daydream of seeing your products in an end cap in Sephora. It's the mark of undeniable success. But how do you get there? How does a brand get to a point where they're standing out amongst a sea of startups? And beyond daydreams of end caps, what is it really like to be in the kitchen with Sephora? On today's panel, we will discover the secret sauce that many founder-led Sephora brands share, and we'll unpack what it's like to be one of those brands, basking in the glow of Sephora. And what does a partnership with Sephora really look like? And if you're newly launching in Sephora, what should you expect? Carolyn, I'm going to start with you.
All right.
You are truly a queen and a kingmaker when it comes to Sephora brands, both finding them, launching them, and just giving them all the love in the world. What is it about a brand that catches your eye in such a saturated market? What is the secret sauce that brands like Dieux and ciele have?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I just want to say good morning, and thank you so much, BeautyMatter, for having us. It's great to be back with you, Janna. And yeah, so I would say the secret sauce is a lot of things that you can't put on a list or you can't sort of describe, right? It truly is that gut feeling. Like I always talk about the merchant gut, and I always talk about, I don't know what's wrong with me. I have access to so much product, and I see all the awesome stuff out there, and I'm like freaking out, and when can I get in there and go shopping and like try all this new stuff? But I think that it just comes with like a little bit of spark or a little bit of like, this feels like the right person or the right product or the right moment for a certain brand to maybe come into our environment. So yeah, I think it's a lot of intangible things that all often, just it's a little bit of a spark. It's a little bit of just like this
And your
special
intuition.
tingle. This special, I was gonna say tingle. Yeah. This special feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just comes with excitement.
Charlotte, you guys launched in 700 Sephora doors last year. Yep. Before that, you were mostly DTC. You were one of the first brands that was in TikTok Shop of beauty.
I'm like, hello, TikTok Shop. I know we have some people.
Yeah, you're out here too.
Love y'all.
Well, and on our call, both you and Nikki said there's like a common misconception in our industry that if a brand launches with Sephora, somehow the founder is going to lose their autonomy. So you are a young yet established brand when you launched with Sephora.
Yes.
So what were your expectations versus reality?
So I think it's really funny because Sephora has this reputation of being a little bit pushy. And when we had all of our meetings, I didn't really see it that way. It was really about understanding what Sephora's business is, and their business is building brands. And so if you don't have a really strong point of view, then yeah, you're gonna potentially get bulldozed. I think that that would be true in any relationship. And so I think what was really important for Dieux was we had a brand, we actually had a proof of concept. We actually didn't want to launch Sephora until we were ready, because we're not like Nikki, where she already had like a lot of experience under her belt. My background is more in media, storytelling, and yes, business. And then my co-founder, Joyce DeLemos, is a cosmetic chemist, but we didn't really have that retail experience. And so I was like, if I can make this work online, I know that there's a path to making it work in store. And so as long as if you come into the relationship with a really strong point of view and you have your values down, it's not just about your business plan and how you're gonna grow, but what are the fundamental things that make your brand special and that actually differentiate you in the market. You have to stay strong to that. And Sephora understands that, right? There's gonna always be push and pull, but when you explain things, it's like, any relationship, I'm like, it's like a romantic relationship or a business relationship. You need to have the conversation. Not all conversations are easy. A lot of them lead to incredible growth, which I'm very proud to say that we did.
Well, and Nikki, your brand has been exclusive with Sephora since your launch in 2023. And I love that you described it like what Charlotte just said. You described it as a marriage. So can you give us a view inside your marriage? Are there quarrels? Was it love at first sight?
I have a journey with Sephora. So for those of you that don't know, I actually had a previous brand to Ciele called Rowan Beauty that I launched in 2018. So that was how I initially got discovered from Sephora back then. I had launched D2C and quickly ended up testing on .com, and that's how my relationship started all those years ago. So, you know, rookie mistakes were made with the first brand, and I ended up exiting. And of course, the Aries in me was like, I need to start a new brand right away. I'm going to do this. And so I had a little time during the pandemic to really reflect and see what my white space was and what I really wanted to bring for my next brand. And so with that, I luckily already had the relationship with Sephora. It doesn't mean that I just magically got in. I had to work for it still. There were some pitches that didn't go well, and it wasn't the brand. And I think any founder knows that even the inception of brands, there's always a journey and there's twists and turns. But once I finally landed on my concept, even though I have thousands of dollars worth of product in a storage unit that will never see the light of day. But once I got to Ciele, it was like, okay, this is it. And I think for the marriage part, what I knew going into it was that it is a partnership. And that's what I wanted. That's what I wanted. Sephora, it gives you credibility automatically, but that doesn't mean just because you're in Sephora, you're just in. It's work. And I think that I have incredible merchants that I have a wonderful relationship with, and the best part is I feel like they feel like Ciele is their brand as well. So we really handhold, talk things through, work together, and make decisions that way. And there's a lot of trust, you know. In certain things I've thought about doing and spending my money on, they're like, you're not ready yet, don't spend your money on that. Let's think about this. Or even with some products, you know, I like having my merchants maybe looking at it from a different lens than a makeup artistry lens. And I think that if you're open to having that partnership, then you're going to create the best brand that you can.
And I think it's interesting too that, you know, me as an outsider, that somehow I thought it's like, oh, you're launching at Sephora, bye, good luck. But they're actually with you for every step of the way.
We speak to them at least once a week on the phone.
Love it.
Yeah.
And Carolyn, Sephora is like a den mother / mentor for these emerging brands. Can you tell us more in depth, like how Sephora supports these brands from an operational and strategic standpoint?
Absolutely. So I think the first difference of how Sephora kind of grew up, right, was we had the intention to have merchandisers versus having buyers. So, you know, we sort of created, I think, in the beauty industry, this special, you know, it's like a tiger team. Like your merchant is really somebody who feels like they're part of the brand, like feels like they're part of the journey. And they're the ones that will offer advice on everything, if you want it or not. You know, we talk about, you know, people you might hire, or, you know, things way beyond the product, like where you should go to dinner, where you should stay in San Francisco. Like we're very like all in terms of that relationship. And over the years, that's extended to different cross-functional partners. And I think another one being certainly our marketers. Like the marketing team is, you know, probably annoyingly at times, like we feel like we're part of your brands, right? And I think that just is inherent in how the structure of Sephora was set up. Like we needed to find indie brands who would grow with us and stay with us exclusively, and that magic has served us well over the years. So yeah, it's definitely a relationship. Like sometimes I feel like some of my brand partners know me better than my husband, so it's like a little scary at times because we might spend more time together. But it really is, I think that's how those, like you said, that Nikki, the twists and turns happen, and you go through it together, the good stuff and the bad stuff.
Yeah.
Because there's, in business, there's all of that.
Yeah.
Well, and something that you said earlier when we were speaking last week that I think is super interesting is you're like, I don't expect a founder to take all my advice and all of Sephora's advice.
I don't want them to, yeah. Yeah, I think it's, we have a lot of opinions. So, and I think that's a great thing. And then we, as we've gotten bigger, we have big teams. And so those opinions might be different from, one person to another on the same team. So I think it's like the job of the founder to stay true, like Charlotte said, to the intent, to the mission, to the point of view, like that. This is your baby. This is your brand. Give you lots of advice, but that is where the magic happens, where it can be a push-pull. And if you said yes to everything, it would be, a weird Frankenstein of what you had intended, right? So, it's the conversation, it's the give and take.
And that way you're holding on to the ethos of the brand, too.
That's right.
Yeah.
And Nikki, we already talked about your marriage.
Yep.
Can you give us examples of what you've learned from your team in terms of strategy that you're like, I can't even imagine how I would have launched without that?
I think it's what I really appreciated even with our launch was the constant conversation of timing. And, like I said, I was hasty. I wanted to get a new brand off the ground straight away. And things happen with production, as we all know, and there was never any pushback when I would have to make the call that's like, hey, actually, we're running into some roadblocks, things aren't ready. Okay, great. You can only launch your brand once. We want it to be the best that it can be. So there was definitely a lot of grace with that. And then I would say just in general, even now, it's, as I'm growing the brand and building the brand, I'm always talking to them about where I should invest my dollars, whether that's digital marketing spend, field team, and, things that I thought maybe like, oh, we need a field team day one. And my merchants are like, you're not ready yet. Don't put your money there yet. Work on brand awareness, work on these other things. And then when it's time, it's time. And obviously, if I felt really strongly, they're not going to tell me you can't, but I appreciate, having their advice. And that's why I partnered with them, is because I want to hold hands with someone and I want them, they build brands. I mean, it's what they do. And so I want to be a part of that journey with them.
Charlotte, before Dieux even came to the table with Sephora, you had already built a devoted community. Mm-hmm. You had reached 8-figure growth in 2 years. And so what was it like at that point in Dieux's journey to partner with Sephora? Were there power struggles, or was it all sunshine and roses?
I mean, honestly, I would say that the disorganization in our own unit was where Sephora forced us to grow up. So there was actually no tension, no friction with Sephora. I would say it was actually one of the most helpful relationships because they forced us to grow up. Because sometimes when you're starting a business, you can not have focus, right? When I'm a digital creature, I'm chronically online. And so that can lead to very scattered tendencies, right? You're feeding an algorithm. I worked in social media for years, like app platforms. I can get somebody's attention 40 different ways in one day. And in Sephora, you have to pick a voice. You have to pick a mission. You have to pick an idea to really go with because you're actually creating a physical space. And so Sephora has been incredibly helpful in actually helping us focus that vision and focus on what we're actually going to be addressing. And so what I would say is that, before going into Sephora, you might think you have a lot of ideas about how you're going to get retail to work. But as Nikki just said, you need product to arrive on time because you can have the best message in the world, but if there's nothing to sell on shelves, it's not like D2C where, oh, we're going to push our launch by a week. No big deal. Nobody knew. That's fine. Oh, we're sold out? Oh, yes, we sold so many units. It's like, no, you didn't order enough. You didn't have your inventory planning in check. And so Sephora really kind of I guess I would say the only tension we had was that we had to grow up and we had to do it very quickly. And they were amazing at helping us do that because, you know, just in terms of like organizational structure, most of our hires, we vetted through them. We actually hired some people from Sephora. And then even with, you know, our CEO, it was somebody that before we hired them, we also had conversations with Sephora because I think for Dieux, we're really trying to be a brand that has longevity. And for us, when we see that you have to build a brand. And it's not about the quick sale. It's not about getting that hockey stick growth. It's not even about exiting, right? It's about how do you build a brand that lasts and can actually stand the test of time on shelves.
Carolyn, over the years, I'm sure you've seen some rookie mistakes with brands that come in. And obviously, it's a lot of strong personalities. These are founders, and these are their babies, the brands, right? They put so much blood, sweat, and tears into it. For emerging brands in the audience, do you have any advice for how to avoid those pitfalls?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, you can learn a lot from those rookie mistakes, but I think it's, you know, coming in with that clear gut feeling too as a brand founder of like, you know, you may have a couple of things that I will not stray from, or this is, you know, this is fundamental to how I want to launch or how I want to show up or the products that I want to create. I think just knowing, like, getting kind of quiet because it can get super loud when you start having conversations, not only with us, but, you know, with investors or people that you're hiring or whatever, and you'll get lots of voices. So I just think taking the time to really just kind of know who you are at your core and, like, always going back to that North Star. I think that it never goes wrong. Like, you know, and, you know, you can evolve from it. It's not to say that you won't maybe, you know, elevate or evolve from it, but it's just having that North Star that you feel really good about as a person, as a brand, as a founder. I think you can't go wrong.
And Charlotte, you know a lot of people in the industry, and I think you've seen some founders go through the growing pains when it comes to scaling and launching with Sephora. So something that you mentioned before that I thought was very bold is that 8 months into your launch, you stepped down as CEO, you became Chief Brand Officer. So
hell yeah.
So tell us about that, like, because I think that's got to be hard as a founder to recognize, like, this is what's going to help me grow my business and the longevity that you talk about.
I mean, I think therapy always helps because ego can really get in the way of your decision making. And ultimately, my priority is the brand. It's not how people perceive me. It's not anything really then how do we keep growing this? Because Dieux has a mission. We really want to change beauty. We want to romanticize science. We want clinical skincare that actually gives results to actually drive more faith in an industry that has lost a little bit of faith along the way. And so that is my number one goal. And so when I saw, forgive my language, the beast that is Sephora, just in terms of velocity, because they can really supercharge your brand, visibility, mistakes are much more obvious. It was a no-brainer for me. I'm like, well, who is not an HR, logistical, operational genius? Moi. I was so ready to be like, what is my superpower? Storytelling, marketing, visuals, working with creative teams, really getting that story out there for Dieux, which is foundational to the brand, and working really closely with Joyce on how are we pushing the envelope with formulas and how are we actually educating on transparency. It's not necessarily the same skill set as Ryan, our amazing CEO. It's not the same skill set as him, but it's really about knowing your lane and really carving that out and then moving forward and not worrying too much about your ego with things because ultimately you built the brand. You are foundational and critical to the brand. It's okay if you don't have some title. I'm not super concerned on that.
The mic did catch up. Can we hear you now?
I don't know. I was
Oh,
like,
yeah, you're back.
Do they not want me to say that? I'm like, know who you are.
Speaking of which, will your CEO be doing any content? I'm just kidding.
I wish. He's brilliant. I'm like, can you explain this to the people? Oh. Ryan, that's actually Ryan. Ryan does not want to do content. So he's actually cutting the mic from New York.
Yeah, it's a sign.
Okay, Ryan.
Nikki, I love looking through your Instagram feed. You are a beautiful makeup artist, and I thought it was very heartfelt when you had that you had a pinch me moment.
Yeah.
And you're like, I saw my products on the end caps in Sephora, and you were really emotional about it.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really beautiful. And you also said in another post that you always had the vision, like how you talked about before, but Sephora gave you a platform to really make that vision come alive. So I know there have been a lot of pinch me moments for you since you joined, but what advice can you give founders to experience their own pinch me moments?
I think it piggybacks what Carolyn was saying about just remembering your North Star, but also kind of keeping your blinders on. I think that there's a lot of noise and there's a lot of brands and there's a lot of things going on, and it's really easy to lose focus and get caught up on what's launching and who's doing what and new formulas and all this, that, the other. And for me, it's been really important to just not pay attention to any of that and just stay focused on what I'm doing and what I'm creating with ciele, because I really believe in the brand, and I've always believed in myself as a founder and a CEO. And so I'm just grateful that now I'm really able to use my voice and show what I can do and have the opportunity. Obviously, Sephora helps to amplify that and gives it that credibility. But, we're just getting started, and it's just been an incredible journey. And I think every milestone has been so special. And I think doing this again the second time, what I've also learned is to actually slow down and enjoy those moments. I think my first brand, I was so obsessed with work, and I never watched TV, or I never really did anything beyond just, building a brand. And this time around, I've really, brought on incredible employees, and I have a great team. But I stop and I think like, wow, this is really special and this is really cool, because if you don't do that, then what are you doing? I mean, you'll look back and be like, oh yeah, I did this thing, but I want to celebrate every moment. I still tell my team that I'm waiting for like the Formula One champagne bath. We haven't done that yet, but you just watch my Instagram. At some point, you'll know when things are going really well when I do that.
Carolyn, did you hear that?
I love that idea.
Yeah, that'd be
I'm here
great.
for that.
Yeah.
So for founders in the audience, Carolyn, how do they catch your eye? How do they actually get to the point where they're sitting down with you?
Yeah, every journey honestly is a snowflake. So, I think about the merchant on my team, like literally slid into Charlotte's DMs and like found her. And I think, there was a connection, yes, with Nikki's brand, her previous brand, and sort of just like, okay, let's have a conversation. We've had people, meet at shows like this or conferences. We've had people, I literally heard a story last night of a founder who was sitting next to our head legal counsel at dinner and just struck up a conversation and like got a name for somebody to email. So there's so many, it's wild. Like there's so many different ways, like you sort of can't plan it. We are obviously always looking for the next big thing. Like that's, sort of how we frame our up-and-coming brands and have space and location in our stores for that. We're always on the lookout, but I would say, as you all know, this community is so connected. I think we're in a different era, too, of brands and brand partnership and, connection. We just did an animation or a story at Sephora, which Nikki was a part of and featured in our windows, featuring just artists who have brands who are actually genuinely friends, founders and friends, who create all this content together and, did really cool stuff. And I just think we're in a lovely era, I think, in beauty where it's connection, everybody can win, there's a space for everybody. And so, yeah, I would just say you never know what could happen. Just keep talking to people. Like was said this morning, like get to know the person next to you because you just never know. And we're always open to connection.
Well, thank you all. Before we get to the Q&A, I just want to thank you guys for speaking so candidly.
Thank you.
And doing this with me.
Thank you.
Are there questions in the audience? Or I know I'm finishing a little early here, but in terms of, do either of you have any extra advice you can give for a founder?
I think the internet is incredibly powerful, and just to build on being noticed, I think that if we went to Sephora with a deck ahead of time, before we had launched anything on social, we would have missed out on a lot of the learnings that actually shaped the brand, because you can actually mess up quite a bit from experience online, and it's more okay because you can pivot quickly. And so having kind of like that pre-testing mode on social, and I'm talking to people who maybe don't have the biggest background in beauty, maybe you haven't launched a brand before, maybe you didn't work at a large multinational. Funny story, my first job offer out of university at McGill was L'Oreal, and I said no because it got lost in my inbox. And so I didn't have that beauty background. And so being able to test things on social media, understanding what was actually gonna work, it actually helped me refine, hone, and sharpen what I was saying. So by the time I got to Sephora, and by the time the brand got to Sephora, it was far more clear who we were, and we actually could stand like 10 toes down on a concept, on an idea. And so if you're kind of just starting out, or if you're not sure if something's gonna work, use social media. Like, I know we all hate it when a post bombs, but use it as a testing ground, because it actually is incredible real-time feedback about what people are engaging with and care about. You can always hack the algorithm, even though sometimes I feel like I'm in Instagram jail.
Yeah.
I do.
I would say that, and also to piggyback on that, it's, you know, it's been really fortunate to launch ciele the way that we did this time, but I'm so glad that I had the experience of launching my previous brand the way that I did. And I had no idea what I was doing. It's actually comical that I got as far as I did with the entire brand, because I had not a clue. And I think that there's something really beautiful to be said about that, in the trials and errors. And, you know, I'm an old YouTuber from like 2010, and there was a lot of experimenting even happening back then. And that's part of the journey. So I wouldn't just look at, you know, what we're saying up here as like, oh, this is the end all be all, you know, really just go for it. I think that when you have passion and you have ambition and you have an idea, that's where the magic happens. And I think that people feel that and they pick up on that. And I think that that's what Carolyn was speaking about, that feeling. And so don't think that it just has to be the same way that we did it, but just have fun and go for it.
Embrace the pivot
Yes.
in a big way. Like the Forever Eye Mask, people, I don't talk about this so much, but the Forever Eye Mask came about because Joyce and like a couple of my friends were encouraging me to go to esthetician school just to kind of get that under my belt and to just understand skin better. And I actually just came up with the Forever Eye Mask while I was there, just throwing out mask after mask after mask. We were working on a whole line of formulations, and then it turned out to be one of our most recognizable products. And so be okay with pivoting, be okay with testing and failing.
Well, and Nikki, since you do have a new baby, Carolyn and I can attest that at some point you will read him a book called A Beautiful Oops.
Yes.
And so that's how you can define, you know, your first brand. You learn from that. And it's
100%. It gave me muscle memory, and I'm so glad that I experienced that.
Great. Sure. Questions? Oh, wait, she's going to come with the mic so we can all hear you. Thank you.
Hi, for Charlotte and for Nikki, what has been your hardest no as you were building the brand? What was the hardest no you had to say?
Oh, I had so many no's.
I know, I'm trying to think,
One funny no was somebody that said that Joyce was too attractive to be a scientist, but that was comical. I was like, no, we can be hot and smart. That's not true. The hardest no, I think, honestly, my hard no's are when I put a lot of work into something and then it doesn't necessarily resonate with the audience. I think that everybody always sees the viral videos, but there are so many iterations that go into that before then. And sometimes people don't care about the same thing that you care about necessarily. And so I think that would probably be the hardest, is like actually like when our customers are like, no, we don't care about that topic. And I'm like, okay, well, let's try again.
It's those bad beats.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm trying to think, I must be fussy because maybe I just forget the no's. I don't know. I don't think
you have
there's
to be a goldfish.
Yeah. There's not one that's like really sticking out that I would say, because I always feel like there's a will, there's a way. If I want it, I'm going to make it happen. So.
Yeah, and I think to be a founder, you actually have to have that delusion. But it's like,
I'm like, what is no? I don't know that word.
right, like delusion is okay, like as long as if you're not hurting anyone, it's like, it's okay to believe in yourself. Like that is literally, that's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Are there any other questions? Oh, we've got one over here.
Oh, no. Shout.
Hello.
Oh.
Charlotte, you mentioned that you doubled down on brand storytelling, and was just curious, what does it take to be a good brand storyteller? What are the key ingredients to storytelling? And open it up to Nikki as well.
Amazing, yeah. So my background is in editorial. I have a very bizarre career path, which is very helpful when you're starting a business because you end up doing so many different jobs and you're not really daunted by anything. But my background is in editorial. I worked at publishing platforms in Canada before I actually worked at Hearst in New York City. And so I was working for Cosmo, Marie Claire, Elle, and I was actually using data to then tell viral stories. I was one of the first like gonzo journalism people there, and I just saw that people love like relatability and things like that. And so I think that for us, what we identified first was that there was a narrative in beauty that we weren't necessarily comfortable with and that we wanted a counter narrative to. We really love science. We really love doctors. We love the FDA. I don't think that should be necessarily a controversial thing to say. Regulation is good. And as someone who's also French, the reason why that market is so safe is because of regulation and not deregulation. And we're not afraid to say things. I think that's the biggest thing with storytelling. A lot of people don't want to be controversial, and I understand that. It's not for everyone. For me, I'm very okay with being controversial because ultimately, I want to find my audience, and the internet is finding your niche. That niche just happens to be 50 million people, right? And so for me, if you're not saying anything, it's a little bit oatmeal. And so it's going to take you maybe longer to build, or somebody will just actually copy your concept and do it better. And what we're finding is that for us, it's really hard to kind of copy what we're doing because we're constantly evolving and there's always something to talk about. And when you're talking about things like sustainability, transparency. I mean, one of our most successful videos that we ever did is actually explaining tariffs and being the first people to do that and to explain why supply chains matter, but also why healthcare matters, because in Spain, it's a hell of a lot cheaper to produce a tube out there because there's actually like government like safety net for people. And so employers aren't responsible for that. And so people don't really make those connections. For me, it's how my brain works. But I think for storytelling, it's like you have to be so passionate about it because it's all you're gonna be doing every single day is talking about it. And so for me, that's like a second instinct.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to follow this one because I'm sure you guys all know her from online, and she's a master at storytelling. I think for us, we've had to get really clear on the story that we wanted to tell, and also not be afraid to continue to tell that story. I think sometimes you think like, oh, well, people should know this by now, or, oh, this is so boring to say the same thing over again. But that really is what builds your brand, is being really clear on the story that you're telling. And it's hard. For me, I run as CEO, and I have a really hard time doing both. Like, I am at my computer all day, and the whole day will go by, and I'm like, oh, I didn't engage in social media at all. And so, you know, if you are a founder that wants to dual path it, just be conscious and mindful to take some time out to really maybe speak to your audience every day. It's still something I'm learning to do. And then it just ends up being my cats and my baby, but you know.
The cutest cats and baby on earth.
But you know, it's a journey, but for the brand, I think it's just always being clear on the story that you're telling.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for joining us. This is fun.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, BeautyMatter.